Of Ask on CYC. So let's talk about youth. Let's talk about the youth of this generation. So we come from a country where the opportunity presents itself to us, but as the younger generation here in this country, still new to life, are these opportunities being presented to us, or do we have to fight for it? Are we in a position where we are disadvantaged, whereas our parents had all the opportunities handed down to them? And is it time for us to fight for these opportunities now and as a young generation, ask and request and push for these opportunities to be given to us in this country? So we have with us Abanoub Salama. Welcome, Abanoub.
G'day, mate.
And welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure having you on the show.
No, it's always great to be here.
Just a reminder to our audience members, please, this is your opportunity to ask questions. And the phone number is 0416 551 292. Please send us a text. You'll remain anonymous, or give us a call and speak to Abanoub on tonight's show. The show is live for a reason, and it's live for you to get involved. Thank you. So Abanoub, so tell me more about yourself. Let the audience get more familiar and comfortable.
Yeah,
so what do you
definitely.
do for work, and what's your background?
So right now my current role is at Exodus Youth Works. I'm the outreach officer there, so it's my duty to go out and engage with the youth of today. So that's anyone, in high school, people just out of high school, who are looking for a bit of a helping hand. They don't know where to go. They want a place to kind of be, where they can figure out kind of what it is they'd like to do, either study-wise, career-wise, in their own personal lives, things like that. So I do get to touch base with quite a few young people and kind of see where they're at and what they want to do. So it's pretty interesting. Okay,
so my understanding is that you deal with a lot of youth from Generation Y.
Yeah.
So what is Generation Y?
In a definition, Generation Y is anyone who is born after the year 1980. And that is including myself, you, and anyone in that kind of limbo area, which I think if we look at it at face value, we're facing a bit of issues. We're looking at, quite a lot. Definitely different from what the past generation of youth were facing, but definitely things that need to be addressed.
Sure. So you come from a migrant family.
Yeah.
Were you born here?
Yes, I was.
Okay, so coming from a migrant family, did you ever feel that your parents had enough time for you, or did they spend a lot of time trying to adjust, trying to establish themselves in this country?
Yeah, 100%. I feel like my parents did, and a lot of my friends' parents as well, did the best that they could with the situation that they were given. I think they knew coming to a new country that they were going to have to work really hard, and not for themselves. My parents, would tell me all the time, we're doing this for you. We came to this country so that you can have an opportunity, so that you can be established. And I watched my parents work tireless hours with a crazy work ethic, an amazing work ethic, where they would, my dad would leave at 6 in the morning and come back at home 10 at night, go to bed, and do the same thing 5 to 6 days a week without fail for almost 20 years. Why? So that I could have the opportunity to have a formal education, a tertiary education, and a career where I was able to, I don't know about, now, but buy a house, start a family, have the opportunities that he didn't.
Yeah. So leaving the mother country, so was it important for your parents to establish a community here in Australia?
Definitely. It was really, really important. And it is important, I should say, for us to have a community, no matter whether that's the Egyptians with the Egyptian community, Greeks with the Greek community. I definitely think it's super important that there is a relationship between all of those communities, but no one is going to understand my issues like my community, you know, especially other Egyptians who have migrated, you know, from Egypt to Australia. So I can't relate to, you know, my Australian friends going through job prospects because, you know, maybe they have a family business that's been set up for 3-4 generations that they can just kind of walk into. For me, it's a lot harder. And for a lot of my friends, it's a lot harder because our families came as the foundation, and that's just being set.
Sure. So was work opportunities during your parents' migration, was it easily accessible, or did they struggle to find work?
I think definitely there was, for example, my dad is a lawyer in Egypt. But when he came to Australia, he started off as a janitor. He was working as a cleaner for a couple of months and then, you know, started a business or with his brother, and they opened up a service station. And for the past 20 years, that's what they've been doing. So my dad's a lawyer, yet he couldn't bring that over here because there was no time. He had to set up, he had to, you know, buy a house, he had to settle in, he had to find, you know, he wanted to have kids, he had kids, and then he had to raise those kids. So there was a lot of sacrifice involved, you know, but the opportunity for him to do what he loved doing wasn't there. And that sacrifice is massive.
Okay. So how do you see yourself as a Egyptian or an Australian?
I definitely see myself as an Australian. I love my Egyptian heritage and my Egyptian background, but people always ask me, oh, what are you? I'm Australian. No. What are you? Oh, my background is Egyptian, but I was born in Australia, so I'm Australian. So it's a very odd hybrid and a very weird kind of state that I think this generation of, you know, Egyptians find themselves in. Are they Australian? Are they Egyptian? You know, do they have kofta on the barbecue or do they have a sausage on the barbecue? You know, it's quite difficult.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to target a lot of the questions towards you.
Yeah, please do.
So I can get your personal opinion.
Yeah, 100%.
But I want also the focus to be about youth in general. So you as an individual, what kind of distractions did you face growing up in this society?
I definitely faced a lot of peer pressure. You know, I would always have, you know, my parents telling me one thing, you know, study hard, do your work, you know, just keep your kind of head down, you know, really focus and make something of yourself because we've worked really hard, you know, for you to be here. But then there was the other side, you know, of my friends saying, oh, no, come out, party, don't worry about it, you'll be fine, just relax. And I think that that played a huge part because I really wanted to be Australian. I really wanted to assimilate to a culture. And I thought my perception was assimilating meant rebelling. So I would rebel against my parents to assimilate to a culture that I had made up. It was really difficult.
Look, now I want to talk about the struggles now.
Yeah, please.
And I know you mentioned earlier about property prices and buying a home.
Yeah.
So let's focus on that and let's focus on employment. So now there's so much competition in terms of employment, in terms of education. Everyone now is focusing on education and less on developing a skill.
Sure.
Whereas in our parents' generation, it was more based on developing a skill because in this country, job opportunities less for this generation because of the competition.
Generation, you may now have 20. So the competition and the stakes are much higher. And young people these days need to be innovative. They need to think, what's going to set me apart? What's going to make me different? What skill, what can I offer to the job that I'm going for? Make me different. Like, how can it make me different? And I think that that's something that, you know, this generation, Generation Y, are actually quite good at doing. I think because of the instantaneous technology we have at our fingertips, it is really easy for us to pick up a new skill, to learn something. Like there are so many online courses you can do in a week, in a couple of hours. Learn a new trade, learn how to build a website in a couple of hours. And kids and young people are very good at that, especially with the technology we have. I mean, we carry the world in our pockets these days. You have the web browser on your phone.
But isn't that the issue? That we all become so reliant on technologies that we stop using our hands and we stop using our, you doing physical labor. Whereas if you look in the construction industry, there is actually a shortage of labor, a shortage of skill in the construction industry. But if you go to an industry where an iPhone or a tablet is being used, everyone knows how to use it. So should the youth not only focus on all these technological advancements and also look at skilled labor for work
everything in moderation, correct? I think definitely everything in moderation, and I 100% agree with you. I do think we're living in the age of entitlement. Young people just kind of want to walk into a job. They want to be able to, they don't want to work for something. But I don't want to stereotype our generation as well, my generation, and say that we're all like that. I think a small percentage of people are like that, but I think that spans across all generations. I'm sure in our parents' generation, there were people who felt entitled to just walk into a job.
Yeah. Okay, so you're saying in a way that we are actually not disadvantaged because there are opportunities, but different forms.
Yeah, and we have to shift our mentality. We have to look for them. They're in different spots now. The opportunities are there. We just have to kind of, move the bush a little and see, around the corner where that opportunity really lies.
Okay, so now let's focus on property. Buying a home.
Yeah.
Here in Sydney, average property prices has become about $1 million now.
Yeah.
So how does a Gen Y, a young youth, buy a property here in today's age here in Sydney? We'll focus on Sydney.
I wish I had an answer for that question. I honestly don't. I'll walk past the real estate and I'll see 1,000,000, 0,000,000, and I'm scared. I'm really scared. I don't know how we can solve that issue. I think that's where community may come into play. I know that there are communities out there that invest as a conglomerate. We purchase one house together, we pay it off, we may live in that house together, then we purchase another house, and then we pay that off together. Because let's face it, one salary isn't going to cut it. It's not just men that are the breadwinner these days. Both, husband and wife need to have, salaries coming in together. And on top of that, maybe there needs to be a third streamline of income as well. And that's where the innovation comes in. Start an online business, get something happening.
Yeah.
Real estate is scary. And I'm scared. I'm not going to lie.
Okay. So let's look at one more topic before we go on a break in terms of disadvantages and changes that has happened. So if we focus on our parents' generation, relationships, getting into a marriage, you can meet someone and within a month or 2 months, you can be married to that person.
Wow.
But in our parents' generation, But now things are different.
Yeah.
Now you got the dating, then you got the engagement period, which has become prolonged now. I think it's a minimum now of 6 months in our community to be in an engagement.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
I still think that's a bit short.
Yeah. But that's what I mean. So things are changing now.
Yeah.
So do you think, in a way, moving from the meeting someone in 2 months you're married, then maybe 2 years, maybe even 3 years you're married? You think this is a disadvantagement, or it's become harder or a struggle meeting people or finding the right relationship?
Look, I would say the 2-3 year waiting period has almost become a necessity. And it relates back to the last topic we were talking about. It's so hard to set oneself up. You know, I have friends that are now married, but they're still living at home, you know, because, you know, they can't afford a property yet. And entering the market itself is quite difficult. 6 months and then getting married, that doesn't gel with me. But I mean, who are we to decide what's love and what's not? Whether it is or whether it isn't, I think that's not our decision to make. I think that's between the couple and God.
Yeah, of course.
You know.
But I'm using this example just to compare with the different generations. Things are taking longer now. Things are becoming harder now.
We have to, I mean, as well realize that there were, you know, marriages that the husband and wife, they didn't know each other until hours before. You know, there are cultures that still do that to this day, and those marriages last lifetimes. You know, I don't think the courtship stage, if you will, is as, I don't want to say it's not imperative, but the emphasis on it can be maybe a little distracting, is what I'll say.
Okay, so we're going to go for a quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue our discussion.
Yeah, let's do it.
So please, if audience members, if you have any questions, please, the phone number is 0416 551 292. We had a couple of questions that came in from the audience. We're going to answer them when we come back from the break, so stay tuned, and please be encouraged. This is a live show giving you the opportunity to ask questions. Thank you.
CYC, Christian Youth Channel.
Hi, and welcome back to Ask on CYC, where we're talking about the Generation Y, the youth of this generation, what went wrong, and we're talking about whether they're disadvantaged or the opportunity is there, but they have to find it another way. We have with us Abanoub Salama. Welcome back to the show.
How's it?
So we got a few questions that actually came in from the audience members, and I encourage audience members to ask questions, and the phone number is 0416 551 292. Please, this is an opportunity to ask questions on tonight's show. So the first question that came in, are the stresses placed on parents today having a direct impact on the upbringing of youth? Why or why not?
I think without a doubt, yeah. If you want a blanket answer, yeah. And I speak from personal experience because I could see how the financial burden on my parents really took a toll on my relationship with them. You know, when I wanted to go out and have fun, go to the park, hang out, go to the cinema, you know, maybe go to Westfields and things like that, it was always, you know, hesitance before, and not today, maybe next week. And then, you know, there would always be a shuffling around of funds, you know, having to go into the back pocket and, you know, sneakily double check that there was enough, you know, he could give me, you know, I could get some pocket money, things like that. So yeah, definitely there's, you know, big pressure.
Okay. So another question that came in from an audience member, they're asking, how important is it to choose your friends wisely? How should you go about doing this?
Without a doubt, it's very important. And I think the best way to go about doing that is by keeping in check with yourself. I think you need to look inward and understand who you are and kind of where your moral compass is, and constantly reevaluate that moral compass. You know, whether it's you write a list of questions for yourself that you review, or you just kind of know. I know for me personally, I can't gel with someone if they don't have the same views as me on certain topics. You know, for example, like animal cruelty. Like anyone who laughs, you know, at an animal being hurt, that doesn't work well. That doesn't sit well with me. So I'm going to automatically distance myself. Someone who is a chronic smoker of just cigarettes, I'll distance myself from that person because I have family who may have passed from cigarettes. And I don't want to align myself with someone like that. So I think by us keeping in check with ourselves and kind of what we stand for, who we are, what we appreciate in life, what we want to take from life is a great way to be able to choose our friends wisely. And it happens naturally. You just sift through them if you're in check with that moral compass.
Yeah. I knew a guy who had a group of friends who earned good money, but whatever they earned, they spent on the weekends. And he reached a point where he felt his life just came to a halt, and he wasn't, achieving success.
Yeah.
So I think, and when he came to a decision that he had to retract from this group of friends, and that's when his career opportunities improved and his success.
Yeah.
He went through a successful phase in his life, but he made that wise decision because he saw that he wasn't going anywhere in terms of career and opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. I think a realization of kind of who you are and always keeping in check with who you want to be and kind of your aspirations in life is the best way to do that. And I think it relates back to what we were talking about before. We have so much technology at our disposal. We have, we're almost 24/7. We're bombarded with media of what we should look like, what we should listen to, how we should eat, what we should, be doing on the weekend, how we should act, how we should speak, how we should do. And there's not enough time for us to kind of just disconnect and assess ourselves and say, hey, I don't like speaking like this. I don't like listening to this kind of music. I don't like using this kind of discourse and this kind of language. That's not who I am. And really fine-tuning who we are.
Okay, another question that came in from an audience member, they're asking, is a lack of love from parents detrimental to the upbringing of a child youth? Please explain your answer.
Without a doubt. I think, actually no, I want to take that back. I want to say that lack of love, period, is detrimental to a youth. Yeah, because I know young people who have grown up without their parents, but they found love in another community, whether it was at an organization like Exodus, for example. I've seen many young people who have absolutely nobody come through our doors at Exodus Youth Works and see the shift in their behavior when they come, when they first walk through our doors and they say, I've got no one, I need someone. They're cynical, they're pessimistic, they don't want to work, they don't care for themselves physically, they don't care about their physical health, their mental health, their emotional health. But then once someone offers them a cup of coffee and they accept, which may take a week, a month, 6 months before they accept that first offer, and then they'll partake in a meal with us, they'll smile, then they'll make a joke, and then they'll engage in the conversation, then they'll engage, in a meal, then they'll join us on a walk, then they'll join us on a run, and they'll join in on the programs, which are all focused on a holistic healing. Then we see the shift. So no, I don't think that they need love or people need love from their parents. Obviously, we want that to be the case, but we don't live in an ideal world. Some young people are abandoned. Some young people have their parents die. It is up to us, again, as a community, to come together and love one another, especially for those who don't have parents.
Yeah.
Isn't that the role of the church? I didn't grow up I grew up without my mother. But my friends' mothers took me in. So I didn't have one mum. I had heaps.
Yeah.
I was blessed.
That's a very nice way to look at it. Okay, so earlier on the show we talked about migrant parents being first generation here.
Yeah.
So now I got a question that talks about being a second generation parent or a third or fourth or so on.
Yeah.
Do you think those raised by Aussie-born parents assimilate well into society and are less likely to have these issues and struggles that we.
So the parents are
Aussie-born.
Anglo-Saxon parents?
No, I think Egyptian,
Egyptian.
but Aussie-born. So they're
okay.
second I think they're trying to. That's what they're trying to get.
Yeah.
So second generation, maybe third, maybe even fourth generation.
I think that's up to like an individualistic kind of view. It depends on each, Australian Egyptian couple. How they choose to raise their family. I know for me personally, I love the Australian values. The crux of the Australian values is mateship. It's that camaraderie. You look at, in World War I and World War II, we've always, been classified as the diggers. We're the first ones to get in there. First ones to help our mate. Who was it? Simpson and his donkey. It's just this one Aussie soldier who went out, picked up the wounded, brought them back. And he just did that, the whole war in Gallipoli, I think it was, So yeah, I think that there's definitely needs to be a hybrid because there's amazing things to be taken from both cultures.
So the way I look at it is, if you're a second or third generation, by then you would have owned your property outright. So your focus would be less on paying off a mortgage and more on maybe spending time with your kids or maybe helping your kids invest in a property.
I think it has to be a balance. It has to be a balance. I can't, as a parent, I'm not a parent, but I would hope when I become a parent, I'm not focused on paying off my house. I can't allow myself to be invested in this rat race. Because at the end of the day, we leave the earth. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust.
But would you want to pay off a house?
I would love to.
Before your kids are born?
Most of it.
So they can live an easy life?
I would love to.
We do all this eventually for our kids, not for ourselves.
100%. I would definitely love to have that done. But is it feasible? Is it realistic? Will it be realistic by the time I'm ready to have kids? I mean, there are so many factors and all those factors are changing. I think it's definitely a mind map, if you will, that is constantly going to change. I don't know what the market's going to look like in 5 years. I don't know what my life's going to look like in 5 years. Will I have a partner? Will I be married? Will I already have a deposit on a house by the time I find my partner, to get married?
Yeah.
There's so many variables. We have to leave ourselves open. We can't be constricted to this is the way it has to be, this is the way I'm going.
Okay. Very interesting take on it. I got another question that came in from an audience member. They're asking, many youth today in our church leave our church to go to a Hillsong or even a Catholic church, or what can we do to attract the Coptic Orthodox, attract them to the Coptic Orthodox Church, and what does Exodus do to help out with this?
I want to focus on what Exodus does because that's the only experience I have. So I was born Coptic. I went to church when I was young for a little bit, and then my family moved away to the Blue Mountains where there is no Coptic church, and I didn't go to church for many years. When I came back after having a big accident, and I was in a coma for a while and whatnot, and I woke up and I kind of realized, whoa, don't want to live like that. And I didn't know where to go, and I had a friend who brought me to Exodus, and kind of almost left me at the doorstep and was like, here, help him. And then Exodus's role was to help me find a beautiful balance. you know, between having a relationship with God and then having relationships outside of the church. And my relationship with God is at the center. And everything stems from that. You know, and I can really focus on what I want to focus on whilst having, you know, a Christ-centered, you know, approach to everything. And I think Exodus' role in that is that they're the net that catches the fallen fish, or they're the people who walk in the desert until we're ready to go home, or, you know, we're the people who are kind of on the sidelines, just kind of keeping an eye, communicating with the priests and the clergy and the servants, and just assisting the youth in whatever capacity we can or will be allowed to.
Okay. So the title of the show is What Went Wrong? So I need to address it. So I need to ask you the question, what went wrong with Gen Y?
Did anything go wrong? You know? I'm really going to be devil's advocate, and I wanna ask you, did anything go wrong, or are we just a little bit different? You know? Are we trying to look at Gen Y with old lenses? You know? 100% we're different. 100% we have different issues. 100% we are faced with challenges we haven't faced before. The internet on its own is a whole issue. Technology on its own is a huge issue. You know, social media on its own, like who Abanoub is as a person and who Mina is as a person is not who Mina is on Facebook, is not who Abanoub is on Facebook. Now I have to control two people. My online personality and my real personality. And I think we're seeing, at least I know at Exodus we're seeing, people combating themselves because they want to be portrayed as something on social media, but that's not who they are. And it's tough living two lives. I can hardly live one.
Okay. So to conclude tonight's show, so Gen Y is not a disadvantaged generation, and the struggle has always been around.
Yeah.
But
like
the opportunities are different.
Yeah. Like every generation, there are disadvantages, but there are also a lot of advantages and a lot of opportunities. I think we just have to look at it in a different light.
Sure. Okay. I'd like to thank you for coming on the show and giving us a great insight on this topic.
Thanks for having me, Mina.
It's a pleasure.
No worries.
And thank you to our audience members who've tuned in and asked questions on tonight's show. I'm Mina Ibrahim from CYC Studios in Sydney. Good night and God bless.
CYC Christian Youth Channel.